There's a monk sitting in a cave 17,000 feet above sea level. The temperature outside is negative 40 degrees Celsius. He's been there for 3 days without food, without fire, without moving. His breath comes once every 2 minutes. And his body temperature? Rising. This shouldn't be possible. But it is. What you're about to hear isn't about meditation. It's not about wellness. This is about something far stranger. The discovery that breath, the most autonomous, and at the same time the most consciously accessible process your body has, might be the hidden control panel between your mind and the fabric of reality itself. And here's the part no one ever tells you. You're already using this control panel every minute of your life, but without knowing it, which means it might be using you. So if you keep watching, you'll understand this. You're not just breathing. You're stepping toward a line that billions of humans cross unconsciously every day, but only a handful ever notice. Let's start with something uncomfortable. You think you're breathing right now, but you're not. Not really. What's actually happening is far more complex and far more strange than the simple mechanical explanation you learned in school. Here's what they told you. Oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. Gas exchange, cellular respiration, biology 101. Here's what they didn't tell you. Breath is a language, a bidirectional communication protocol between your consciousness and your cellular architecture. Every pattern of breath you produce sends cascading signals through your nervous system, your endocrine system, your immune system, and, this is where it gets interesting, your quantum biological processes. Let me take you to 2014, Radboud University Medical Center, Netherlands. A team of researchers is studying Wim Hof, the Iceman, a Dutch extreme athlete who can control his autonomic nervous system through breath. They inject him with bacterial endotoxin. This should trigger an immune response. Fever, inflammation, cytokine storm. Standard biology, except it doesn't happen. Through a specific breathing pattern, Hof suppresses the inflammatory response by over 50%. He's voluntarily controlling what medicine considers involuntary. The researchers are baffled. They repeat the study with trained participants. Same result. The paper concludes, voluntary activation of the sympathetic nervous system and attenuation of the innate immune response in humans. But that clinical language hides something more profound. What they discovered is that breath can reach through the supposed wall between conscious will and autonomic function and rewrite the script. This isn't control. This is code injection. Now let's go deeper. Let's talk about what breath actually does at the molecular level. When you breathe, you're not just moving oxygen. You're modulating the electromagnetic state of hemoglobin molecules in your blood. You're shifting pH gradients. You're altering the spin state of electrons in your mitochondria. You're changing the vibrational frequency of water molecules in your cells. These aren't metaphors. These are measurable physiological shifts, and some researchers believe they may whisper into the quantum layer of biology. Dr. Stuart Hameroff, anesthesiologist and consciousness researcher, has spent decades studying microtubules, the protein structures inside neurons that may be the seat of quantum processing in the brain. His work with physicist Sir Roger Penrose suggests that consciousness itself emerges from quantum coherence in these structures. Here's where breath enters the picture. Oxygen availability directly affects quantum coherence time in microtubules. Change your breathing pattern, and you change the quantum information processing in your neurons. You're not just calming down, you're altering the computational substrate of consciousness itself. Still think breath is just air moving in and out? Let me introduce you to a concept from biophysics: respiratory entrainment. Your breath doesn't just affect your body, it synchronizes disparate biological oscillators: heart rate, brainwave frequencies, hormonal pulses, even the firing patterns of the gut's enteric nervous system. Dr. Andrew Huberman at Stanford has shown that specific breath ratios directly control the balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. But here's the twist. This isn't passive regulation, it's active programming. A ratio of 1:1, an equal inhale and exhale, creates neutral arousal. A ratio of 1:2, where the exhale lasts twice as long, shifts you into parasympathetic dominance: rest, digest, repair, and critically, autophagy, the cellular cleanup mechanism. A ratio of 2:1, a longer inhale than exhale, activates the sympathetic nervous system: fight or flight, heightened alertness, metabolic acceleration. But when you switch to extended breath retention, holding the breath after the exhale, you induce what's called controlled hypoxia. Your cells interpret this as a survival stressor, and they respond by activating ancient genetic programs: AMPK pathways, the SIRT1 longevity genes, and the master autophagy regulator mTOR gets suppressed. Within 7 minutes of specific breath patterns, you can trigger the same cellular cleanup process that normally requires 3 days of water fasting. This is not belief. This is biochemistry. But let's step back from the mechanics. Let's ask a different question. Why does this exist? Evolution doesn't install control panels we don't need. If breath can voluntarily modulate autonomic processes, quantum coherence, genetic expression, and cellular aging, why? What evolutionary advantage does this confer? Here's a possibility that will sound mystical, but is grounded in information theory. Breath is the interface through which consciousness modulates its physical vehicle. Think about it. Every other bodily function is either fully voluntary, moving your arm, or fully involuntary, digesting food. Breath is the only process that straddles both. You can control it, or let it run on autopilot. This isn't an accident, it's an access point. The yogis knew this 3,000 years ago. They called breath prana, life force. They mapped elaborate systems of breath control called pranayama, claiming it could alter consciousness, extend lifespan, and achieve states they described as union with the infinite. We dismissed this as mysticism until quantum biology came along. Let's talk about oxygen, not the gas, the molecule. O2. Oxygen is paramagnetic. It has unpaired electrons, making it responsive to magnetic fields. When oxygen molecules enter your bloodstream, they interact with the iron and hemoglobin through a process called cooperative binding, a quantum mechanical phenomenon where the binding of one oxygen molecule changes the probability of others binding. This is quantum entanglement in your blood, right now, in you. Dr. Philip Ball, science writer and chemist, has documented how quantum effects persist in biological systems far longer than previously thought possible. Photosynthesis, for instance, uses quantum coherence to achieve near-perfect energy transfer efficiency. Migratory birds navigate using quantum entanglement in protein molecules in their eyes. And breath? Breath modulates the quantum states of the most abundant molecules in your body: oxygen, water, and the ions that create electrical gradients across every cell membrane. Change your breath. Change the quantum field inside your body. Now, let's get esoteric. In Tibetan Buddhism, there's a practice called tummo, or inner fire breathing. Monks in freezing mountain caves use this technique to raise their core body temperature by several degrees Celsius. Western science documented this in the 1980s. Harvard physician Herbert Benson measured monks drying wet sheets on their bodies in sub-freezing temperatures through breath and visualization alone. The mechanism isn't mystical. It's thermogenic activation through controlled hyperventilation, followed by breath retention. The rapid breathing alkalizes the blood, shifts the oxygen dissociation curve, and allows oxygen to flood into tissues. The retention phase creates a CO2 buildup that triggers vasoconstriction and metabolic heat production. But here's what's strange. The monks don't just generate heat. They report altered states of consciousness, vivid clarity, expanded awareness, and what they describe as direct perception of the nature of mind. Neuroscientists now have a name for this: transient hypofrontality, temporary suppression of the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that maintains your sense of self. When this quiets, the boundaries between subject and object, self and world, begin to dissolve. Breath is the trigger, not drugs, not trauma, not meditation alone. Breath. Let me show you something else. Something from the frontier of consciousness research. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, biologist and controversial thinker, proposed a concept called morphic resonance. The idea that memory is not stored in the brain alone, but exists in fields that connect similar structures across space and time. This sounds insane, until you look at quantum field theory. In quantum mechanics, particles aren't things. They're excitations in underlying fields. An electron isn't a tiny ball. It's a localized vibration in the electron field. Same for photons, quarks, every fundamental particle. Now apply this to biology. What if organisms aren't isolated meat machines, but localized expressions of biological fields? What if your nervous system is an antenna receiving and transmitting information through these fields? If this is true, then breath, which directly modulates your bioelectric field, becomes a tuning mechanism. Change your breath pattern, and you change what frequency you're resonating at. You change what information you can access. The Tibetan monks called this winds or lung in their language, invisible currents that carry mind information through the body. They mapped specific breath patterns to specific states of consciousness. Modern science calls this neurocardiac integration or respiratory modulation of brain rhythms. Different words, same phenomenon. Here's where it gets personal. You've felt this. Maybe you've never named it, but you've felt it. That moment when you're anxious, spiraling, and you take one deep, slow breath, and something shifts. Not just emotionally, something fundamental. The texture of reality seems to soften. The urgency dissipates. You think you've calmed yourself down, but what actually happened is far more interesting. You changed the dominant oscillatory frequency in your brainstem. This propagated up into your limbic system and prefrontal cortex. Neural networks that were locked in high-frequency fear patterns suddenly shifted to slower, more coherent rhythms. Your perception literally changed, not because the world changed, but because the information processing in your nervous system reorganized. One breath. Reality rewrites. This isn't metaphor. This is measurable in real-time fMRI. Dr. Judd Brewer at Brown University has documented how breath-focused interventions create functional connectivity changes in the default mode network, the brain system responsible for self-referential thought, rumination, and the construction of your sense of I. Breath reaches into the core of identity itself. Now let's talk about carbon dioxide, the gas you've been taught to think of as waste. Except it's not waste. It's a signaling molecule, a neurotransmitter, a regulator of oxygen delivery, pH balance, and cerebral blood flow. Dr. Peter Litchfield, a respiratory psychophysiologist, has shown that chronic overbreathing, something most modern humans do without even noticing, drains CO2 and pushes the body into what's called respiratory alkalosis, a state where your blood becomes too alkaline, tipping the chemical balance that your cells depend on. And here's the twist you're not supposed to expect. This shift tightens your blood vessels, reduces oxygen delivery to your tissues. Yes, that's real. And throws your autonomic nervous system off its natural rhythm. The result? Anxiety, brain fog, chronic fatigue. The very symptoms people breathe rapidly trying to escape. But here's the alchemical reversal. Learning to tolerate higher CO2 through breath retention and slower breathing creates respiratory resilience. You train your body to operate efficiently under stress. You expand your window of tolerance. You become anti-fragile. The ancient yogis called this kumbhaka, breath retention. They considered it the most powerful pranayama practice. Modern exercise physiology calls it CO2 tolerance training. The monks were doing altitude adaptation and metabolic optimization. They just didn't have the biochemistry terminology. They had the results. So what does all this mean? It means breath is not a background process. It's the most accessible lever you have for reaching into the operating system of your body-mind and changing the code. Every breathing pattern is a command, a set of instructions sent simultaneously to your cells, your neurons, your genes, and possibly, if the more radical theories are correct, to the quantum field that underlies biology. The Tibetan monks understood something profound. Reality is not fixed. It's negotiable. And breath is the negotiation. Not because breath is magical, but because breath is the interface between intention and biology, between mind and matter, between the story you tell yourself and the cellular truth your body believes. Here's the unsettling part. If breath can rewrite your internal reality, your stress response, your gene expression, your cellular age, then what else might it affect? There's emerging research on biofield therapies, practices where intention and subtle energy emission seem to influence healing. Controversial, yes, but the studies exist. Dr. William Bengston's work on hands-on healing in mice. Dr. Dean Radin's experiments on distant intention affecting random number generators. The mechanism isn't clear, but one hypothesis keeps appearing. Coherent bioelectric fields. Your nervous system generates an electromagnetic field. Your heart does too. When these fields become coherent, organized, rhythmic, they may interact with other biological systems in ways we don't fully understand. And the most reliable way to create this coherence? Controlled breathing. Let me bring this back to you, to your life, to this moment. You're breathing right now. You've been breathing this entire time, but you probably weren't aware of it until I mentioned it. That's the strange duality of breath. It flows automatically, governed by ancient brainstem circuits embedded deep in your nervous system. But the moment you become aware of it, you gain a choice. You can step in, shape it, slow it, deepen it. That simple shift, from automatic to intentional, is not small. It's a doorway. Your inner access hatch. The yogis, the monks, the mystics, they weren't superstitious. They were empirical. They ran experiments on themselves for thousands of years. They mapped the territory of breath and consciousness with the rigor of scientists. They just didn't have modern instruments. but their maps still work. Tibetan Tummo raises body temperature. Verifiable. Yogic pranayama modulates heart rate variability. Measurable. Sufi dhikr breathing induces altered states. Replicable. These aren't miracles. These are technologies. Technologies you carry in your body, right now. If consciousness can rewrite biology through breath, if intention modulated through respiratory patterns can change gene expression, cellular function, and possibly even bioelectric fields that extend beyond your skin, then the boundary between inner and outer starts to blur. Physicist John Wheeler proposed the participatory universe, the idea that observers don't just witness reality, they actively participate in its creation through the act of measurement and observation. Breath might be one mechanism for this participation, not through woo-woo manifestation, but through the tangible biophysical coupling between your nervous system and the environment. Your breath changes your internal state. Your internal state changes your perception. Your perception changes what you attend to. What you attend to changes what you interact with. Reality rewrites. Subtly, continuously. The monks weren't escaping reality through breath. They were engaging with its malleability. You've been breathing for as long as you've been alive. A constant, quiet rhythm beneath every thought, every memory, every moment you've ever known. A process so fundamental that the mind eventually stopped noticing it. But when you turn your attention to breath, truly turn it, something shifts. Not by chance, not spontaneously, but through choice. And that choice is a threshold. Because the instant breath becomes conscious, you're no longer a passenger being carried by biology. You become the one holding the reins, the one interacting directly with the machinery that shapes your perception, your physiology, your state of being. Conscious breath isn't about air, it's about agency. It's attention-altering chemistry, intention modulating electricity, awareness reorganizing the entire internal environment you call you. For thousands of years, every tradition that worked with breath understood this. They didn't worship breath. They recognized it as the one process that belongs equally to the automatic and the intentional. The hinge between instinct and awareness, between the body you inhabit and the mind observing it. Not because breath is sacred, but because consciousness is. And breath is the doorway through which consciousness enters the body. So here you are, at the end of this journey. No ancient caves, no rituals, no theories. Just you and the simple act that has been happening in you since the moment your life began. But this time, it's different. Not the unconscious rhythm, not the inherited pattern running on ancient circuitry. This is the breath you choose, the breath you witness, the breath that witnesses you back. Because in one deliberate inhale, and in the stillness that follows, you discover something that has been hiding in plain sight. Consciousness is not happening inside you. You enter it. You move through it. And breath is the first step. So the question is no longer, how does breath rewrite reality? The real question is, what reality will you breathe into existence now that you finally know where the doorway is?